What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Wolfcrier here, and today we are going to be talking about the new Path of Exile Expedition announcement, along with the game changes that are going to come with this new league. I am joined once again by my good buddy Aetrik, and we are going to open up this discussion right now on the Expedition portion of it. Your thoughts, Aetrik, and how are you today?
Doing well, and I really liked what I saw. It was very brief, but I liked what I saw for Expedition. Mainly because to me, it looks like it gives players a lot of agency on what they are getting and, sort of the effort that they put into things, because you get to see what type of things you're blowing up to get, whether or not you want the fight that you can get there, just go for extra chests. And then you get to trade in, and you got different trade mechanics to the different vendors. So I like the fact that it looks like it gives players a lot of agency. If you interact with it, I'm absolutely sure it's going to drastically slow down you getting through the acts. So there's probably going to be a lot of people that try to do their typical ignore the league mechanic and speed as quick as they can towards maps. But I'll probably be messing around with this one a lot during leveling, because it looks really promising to me. And I think it's also something, the way it looked, you could probably get some good leveling gear out of it.
It is usually the case with the new league mechanics. Usually those that want to race into maps, they are going to skip because it's going to be very time consuming and take up a lot of your time that you're usually utilizing to get to the end game and get through the campaign and all of that. It might be beneficial to be able to do it every now and then, just to give yourself gear, like you said, which is definitely something that people should think about. But if you're playing hardcore, it might be more rippy, and you never know until the league gets going, like how bad it's going to be as far as the damage of the league mechanics and what's going to hurt more. And the same can be said for most of the leagues that have come out as of late. What I'm personally loving is in Legion, you got to deal with a bunch of monsters in a box. In the Delirium, you got to deal with a bunch of monsters in a line. In Ritual and Ultimatum, you got to deal with a bunch of monsters in a circle. And now, thanks to Expedition, you can make your own geometric shape that you want to deal with all the monsters. So you can create whatever type of shape you want. If you're missing Ultimatum, yes, you can try to make something circular with your explosions. If you're missing Legion, just make that thing into a box that's pretty compact, and so on. So once again, we have a very shaped league, and whether or not they're uniform or some made-up shape, you can once again do battle in some type of geometric shape. So yeah, pretty interesting. It's tough when you're dealing with maps and trying to add content that you have to position people into doing, that you're going to end up with this type of stuff. But it is funny that, the same concept is still there. You're not changing entire maps, you're adding portions of a map that are affected by a certain thing. Sometime in the future, maybe this will be revisited in such a way where, I think Delirium was the last time that an entire map could be affected by it, and it wasn't some type of shape that you were dealing with. So we'll see, but they definitely love some shapes.
Yeah, I think the only thing really similar to the map in this is the log books that you can get, that you can then craft onto, that sort of makes your own expedition map.
So makes Blight. Got it.
Yeah. Basically makes Blight. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'll just make circles for the nostalgia. I mean, the game spent the past half year training me to run in a circle. I'm scared of corners now, so I could make everything a circle.
Understandable. Definitely understandable. The difference between this and Blight is obviously you're going to also make more shapes. So that's the thing, because you're still going to decide what you want to blow up. I do like that aspect of it. You choosing which portions of it you want to interact with. You'll be able to increase its difficulty, increase its rewards. But it also looks like a lot of the rewards are going to be bartering with the new NPCs. So I'm not sure on all of it until we get to play it. I think playing it is what's going to decide for me whether or not I like the mechanic and whether or not it's a good mechanic in my eyes.
And I kind of like that some of the the rare monsters that you can explode so that they activate have apparently going to have really hard modifiers on them, like immune to a specific type of damage. Like, I think that kind of stuff's great.
I think it's good that you can also tell that stuff before you release it.
Being able to tell it beforehand is really important, though, because it would absolutely suck if you just like, oh, I'll get this one because it's a guy, he has something I want maybe, and then you say it's, immune to lightning damage and you're using the new lightning arrow ability thing. It's like, well, guess what? You're not doing anything. So it is good that you can see it ahead of time, but I think it's interesting that they're adding those really hard modifiers, and I kind of like that because it's going to make it so that people don't just activate every part of the best thing. They're going to actually have to avoid some of the things throughout.
At least not till later on in the league, especially for hardcore players. You're not going to want to activate every portion of it. Most of the time they don't until, it solidifies in what exactly each thing is going to roughly do.
Yeah, and after, softcore has been just annihilated by it for the first week or so, and there's a patch to tone it down, then hardcore players are established and they're okay with it and they'll jump in.
Well, the thing is, and that'll lead us to the game balance changes later, is that's always based off of the fact that because of the power creep, these things need to be more powerful. And unfortunately, that does create a problem in the early stages of the game for people, for sure. And even in the late game as well. But they are adding 19 new skill gems as well, which is pretty awesome. Well, skill or support gems. So I personally am looking forward to, what is the Dark Reaper, or the Reaper, the summoning one for the Necromancer. That looks absolutely awesome. I love the thought of it and the look of the Reaper design. And I'm loving the fact that we can now have slam totems, which just sounds awesome. I love slam builds. They're a bit clunky at times, so might as well just add a totem to it, make it even more clunky, but make it look pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to both of those and seeing how they stack up in the new meta. And let's face facts, ladies and gentlemen, there will still be a meta. There will just be a shakeup. And I think that's going to be the key, but there's always a meta to every game because, let's face facts, people can't stand falling behind and will go with whatever's best unless you're one of those people who loves to experiment with different builds and stuff like that. But even to do that, a lot of times you're stuck, playing builds that you're not sure you want to. But I think with the addition of the new gems and some of the balance changes, that's going to be a bigger, wider choice of builds that might interest you and that you're going to want to play. Your thoughts on the new skill gems, or any skill gems that stand out that you want to try?
Yeah, I agree. The new skills, a lot of them look really nice, and the slam totems, I think there's going to be a lot of insane fun, just randomness that comes from that. I mean, just think if you run a full max totem type build using leap slam totems, just have a bunch of totems jumping around. It might not be worth anything, but it'd be hilarious to watch.
It would be fun to watch, and they said it can be done because leap slam is a slam ability. So I mean, it would definitely be cool to see a bunch of totems just leaping around with
Uh,
multiple totems and stuff.
in terms of the one that I'm probably going to end up using with my league starter, because, I'm stupid and do that kind of stuff. This might be the first season or league that I run a Deadeye, because I'm looking at the Storm Arrow or Storm Rain or whatever it's called. Yeah, Storm Rain.
Yeah.
Basically the one that shoots the arrows into the ground and they arc lightning between them. Because I read it and you can have up to 100 of those arrows in the ground, and they pulse between each other every half a second. So I'm kind of curious, like how many of those you can actually get spread on the ground
It would
before,
be
they go
pretty epic
away.
if you could get a ton down. Depending
Yeah,
on I'm guessing that would have to do with your attack speed and, your
yeah,
multiple projectiles and all of that stuff.
yeah. So I kind of am tempted to try and get something working with that, because just having a ton of those on the ground arcing lightning everywhere would be cool. The other one that I'm interested in, mainly because I have no clue, like how, like it's gonna have to hit hard, is the Forbidden Rite, and that's like I guess the witch chaos damage one.
Yep.
But like when I was reading it, it deals damage based on your max life and max energy shield. So I think it can do massive damage, but
But
it
it does
hurts
that
you
damage to
hard.
you as well, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it's not light hits either. Like I did, the blood tendrils or whatever this past league, and you can get by the damage you take on that. Like Forbidden Rite is 40% of your max life and 25% of your max energy shield when you cast it. Like, that is massive.
It
So,
is. But I'm sure there's going to be ways to mitigate that.
well, there are ways I know that you can completely get around it, because it's dealt as chaos damage. So if you go chaos inoculation, you're basically immune to it. But at the same time, if you go chaos inoculation, you have no life. Completely defeats the purpose. If you go one of the, even low life builds, I mean, you'd have to get chaos immunity or extreme chaos reduction to make it work.
Yeah.
Oof. But like
Rage
I say,
the
big damage.
the Rage Vortex looks pretty cool too, but I have never personally fooled around with any Rage builds as of yet. So maybe that's something to look into as well. A lot of the new skills look really cool. I personally like the way a lot of them look. I mean, I could always roll a wizard in Diablo 3 and then switch over to Path of Exile and run Frozen Orb in both of them now with the new, what is it, Winter's Eye?
Yeah.
And that would be pretty cool to see that there's finally a Frozen Orb. Path of Exile borrowed Frozen Orb from Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and then borrowed stuff from Last Epoch with its new ward system, which is pretty cool. So very good to see that they're keeping an eye on their competitors and snatching up little things here and there, because I think that's something that does create some competitive issues between the companies that should improve all the games. If they're, taking a look at what the other games are doing, and, I like that. Let me see if I can do a version of that. I love that stuff. Now, it's time for the big talk. The big one. Let's talk. Flasks first. Let's go with it. Aetrik, kick it off.
I'm sorry. I love it. I mean, you've watched me play this game and realized that I suck at Flask management. Like,
oh my god!
To try and speed through the game, like I know, like if Voldy's watching, he like yells at me in Discord, "Use your Quicksilver Flask," because I'll sit there and have two Quicksilver Flasks while I'm trying to level through the game and not clicking any of them. They're both full because I'm just not paying attention to them. So I'm 100% going to be farming the crap out of instilling orbs, and I'm basically going to set these things up with triggers so that, like, yeah,
before
it's
you
like
continue on the flasks, which I'll let you finish in a minute. But I have the exact opposite thing. I've got my hands on QWER, which is where I have my skills, except I'm constantly holding my hands on QWER to cast my skills, but at the same time, moving them up and hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. It was killing my hands. My hands hurt so bad after playing POE that it's just insane because I'm literally having to cast QWER in between hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every 3 or 4 seconds. So it's a well-deserved change. And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I seldom use the Flask properly anyway. So like the thing they're talking about where people are like preemptively activating their Flask to be immune to stuff all the time. I never did that. It's like, oh God, I'm frozen. Click which one of them's the right button because I never click on this thing. So yeah, I'm thrilled with this. Like I'm gonna Instilling Orb everything. So my immunity to freeze Flask is gonna be like trigger when I get frozen so that I don't have to ever touch it and stuff like that.
Yeah, Sharkbait in chat said it perfect. The game should not be balanced around flasks and flask usage.
Yeah.
But this is something that needs to happen. There's just way too much button clicking. You were clicking in your rotation something like 9 buttons where only one of your skills does any damage. You know what I mean? You were literally every build in the game, just like every other ARPG for the most part. One build, one skill is your main source of damage. Only in Path of Exile, you get to hit 9 buttons for that to actually matter. So hopefully that is something that is going to be affected by these changes. I love the changes. They are no more of this preemptively smashing your bleed flask to get that bleed immunity. You're going to have to use it when you start bleeding, or you're going to have to set it up to trigger when you start bleeding, or you're going to have to find bleed immunity somewhere else.
Yeah, like all my initial currency is going into buying and stealing orbs so that I could get my flask the way I want them and not ever have to touch a flask button. Like if there's the ability to put a trigger on 50% life, activate a healing pot. Oh yes, 100%.
Could you imagine that? Like that'd be cool if a lot of the stuff could be auto cast, and that would save a lot on my fingers.
Yeah, so we're both liking that change, but for completely opposite reasons. You because you use it and hate it. Me because I just don't feel I keep forgetting to do it. So it's like it gives me the chance to actually interact with the flask. I'm curious how this is going to affect flask finders.
Could you imagine how powerful your builds are going to be? Aetrik is the only person
this is a
getting
buff for me
because of the new flask system where now it'll actually cast his flasks.
Yeah, it's going to be the first time in oh god, how many hours have I played this game? Let me see real quick. Path of Exile.
Everybody's complaining on Reddit that they got nerfed, and Aetrik's over here like, yeah, I finally get to utilize some of these flasks.
2,000 hours played, and I'm finally going to be able to use flask. I'm so shit at this game.
Oh, that's awesome. So awesome. So flasks are changing where you can't preemptively buff yourself. Some of the flasks are being nerfed in what they can do. You cannot preemptively remove bleed or freeze unless you get frozen and then use the flask, or start incurring bleeds and then hit the flask, that sort of thing.
It's also going to affect your maps because, you know, the curse immunity flask.
Oh my God.
It's not going to be the instant fix for Curse Temp Chains maps anymore.
Curse immunity flasks are pretty much mitigated because you can use them to remove curses, but they do not give you a buff, which stops you from getting cursed. So yeah, no more temp chain maps for for
Oh,
people. There's definitely going to be more thought process in both flasks and your maps as far as how
yep.
you want to roll them. This is probably, like I said, I'm going to be playing D3 for the beginning just to do level of the cause and because I want to play around with the ethereal items. But this is probably one of the biggest announcements for me and one that I am definitely looking forward to. And I will be playing Path of Exile this league because I want to see how much of a shakeup is going on. Hardcore might be screwed, Old Man Ray. That is a definite. But they're always screwed at the beginning of a league, anyways, until you figure out how much the mechanic is going to screw you over. So every
Especially
new
the poor
league
SSF hardcore
gives you
guys.
that possibility where hardcore is going to really suffer. It's just pretty awesome. I love the flash changes. And now let's go ahead and do it. Now this is the even bigger one. The game is being balanced entirely. It is gotten to the point with power creep that the player's power has exponentially grown since its creation, and they want to put an end to it. And unlike other ARPGs and Path of Exile has over the years, instead of just bumping up the endgame content and stuff and the new league mechanics to match that power creep, they are putting their foot down, throwing the car in reverse, and mitigating, they said, 20 to 40% damage off of, a lot of the 6-link builds that were out there. So they are skimming damage off of the top for the most part. Reddit's in an uproar as usual, at least, portions of Reddit and portions of the player base. And yeah, people are definitely upset. I've actually been reading a lot. I stay off Reddit because I find it to be pretty cancerous. But today I had to see what's going on, and some people making, foolish statements that, how they gave for the supporter pack, and they got all their stuff that comes with the supporter pack, and now that that GGG is just pissing in their face and taking their money and saying this is what we want to do. That's, to those people there, I just have to say, yeah, that's kind of what you paid for. You paid for them to create the game that they want to create. You did not give them $10,000 to have an active say on their board of electors and stuff like that. You did not do that. If you did pay them $10,000, you're a moron. If you spent that much on microtransactions, I've spent a pretty decent amount over my time playing it. I've been playing for 5 years, and I've spent a big chunk. But you know what? I want them to create the game that they want to create. But that's me, and that's how I want to play my games. If I want to create a game and have it exactly how I want it, I need to go to school and learn how to do that stuff. That's not on GGG to make what I think is the perfect game. I want them to make what they think is the perfect game, and whether or not I like it, that's up to me. It doesn't make it a dead game if I don't like it. It doesn't make it trash if I don't like it. It just makes it not my cup of tea. And personal opinion, like, people literally just need to get the fuck over themselves. Reddit is like Drave said, Reddit is like a bonus content for this game. It's great to go there. The shit that I've seen today and the amount of no-brain activity has been absolutely amazing. I got to go into this, Aetrik, and then I'll let you talk again. I'm sorry. Here's one of my favorites, okay? 20 to 40% nerf on a lot of the 6-link builds, right? Some moron, and actually a couple of morons out there, have decided to say that this hurts the non-meta builds more than the meta builds, okay? let me tell you how numbers work, okay? If I do 80 million DPS to a boss or 1 million DPS to a boss, let's go with the round number, 100 million DPS to a boss or 1 million DPS to a boss, okay? And you take 20% off of that. That 100 million DPS has lost 20 million compared to 200,000 DPS. Now, if you were running a 1 million DPS build and trying to fight Sirius 8, you were already in for a half an hour fight if you were capable of doing it. Okay? If you weren't capable of doing it, that 200,000 DPS is not affecting you at all because you're still incapable of doing it. If you were capable of doing it, then you still are because you still had the skill to be able to survive that long against Sirius, and now you have to survive, 4 extra minutes. I'm sorry, but math doesn't work where the smaller the number, the bigger the percentage hurts. It doesn't. That's not how it works. If you were running a 400k DPS build, you weren't doing the fucking content anyways. And in my opinion, the game should not be built around no-lifers, but it definitely shouldn't be built around people who, can't play more than an hour a week. There's got to be that balance. People who play longer get more stuff. People who play meta builds or builds that can actually do the content can clear further. If you want to be able to get your build to do so, then maybe look into what's causing your build not to. I've made builds utilizing non-meta skills several times over my time playing Path of Exile. And either I make it work or I look up how to make it work, or I completely give up and say, this is something that doesn't work whatsoever. I can't do it, which is very, very rare because most of the time, most of the skills in Path of Exile, you can take that skill and equate it to a similar skill and figure out how they were doing that similar skill. Incinerate, for instance, is very similar to lightning tendrils. You just have to switch some nodes around to go into lightning damage instead of fire damage. And you know what? A lightning tendrils build can be done. I've done it. It's not meta. It's never been meta. And I've been able to kill Elder with it. So, and this was back before Sirius and all of that. So it's not something that can't be done. And at the time, I was working 50 hours a week. I was playing Diablo 3 at the same time. I was playing Path of Exile on the side. So it can be done. It just depends on whether or not you want to put in the time to figure out how to do it. All right, go, Aetrik.
So my take on them is I don't really think these nerfs are going to be as bad as people are thinking, because at least not for me, because it's going to force people to look at off color builds that they normally wouldn't, because the way they explain these nerfs to like the 6 links is that it's going to deal with the big damage multiplier support skills. It's not going to really affect things that sort of have other ways of supporting the skills. And I actually logged on earlier just to see like how it would affect my character from this league. I think it might affect 2 of my 4 support skills, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Brutality might get hit and cruelty might get hit, but that would basically be it. So if I lose 40% on those 2, I've still got the others going for me. And my build was an off-meta build. It did really well this past league, and I never even finished it. The big damage portion for my build that would have really sent it over the top was that Soul Mantle with 6 off-color sockets that I have sitting in my stash that I never bothered to 6-link. If I'd have gone ahead and 6-linked that and put that on, swapped a couple of items around, it would have jumped my damage up a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But I never bothered doing it. And I was still able, I didn't kill Cirrus, but it's like, I walked into the fight, engaged with it, and saw how low my damage was on that without Soul Mantle. And I was like, yeah, this isn't going to happen right now. So yeah, I'm back out. I was doing tier 16 maps, no problem at all.
Yep.
And this was with a gimped off meta build. Like, it wasn't even finished with my big damage piece. So I think people are just going to have to find ways around it. There's going to be a new meta that will come up, no problem. A big thing that these nerfs, from what we've seen so far, isn't hitting, though, is the fact that group play, like the group meta with aura bots and curse bots, are still going to be a big thing that's going to help a lot of people rush in game, and it's really going to offset the economy at the beginning, because those groups, unless they do something about the curse and aura bots, are still going to be able to bum rush in-game content and get those items and start trading them.
You're right, and I'm sure that is something that is going to be addressed at some point in the future, but I would like to actually see Path of Exile bring in more possibilities of party play rather than limit them. Personal opinion. I like playing in groups, but Path of Exile doesn't really lend itself to playing in groups unless you are willing to run Curse Bot, Aura Bot, that sort of thing. Sharkbait put that the point is bad skills are now much less likely to be used if everything got nerfed across the board. Bad skills meaning what? That's what I want to know. What is a bad skill? Because that's the thing, is who's determining the good skill? Are you going by people? You can give me a list, do so, because I will take that and create a build off of it, this league. Will it be running maps in under 2 minutes? No. The majority of new players are looking at either build guides or they're trying to make up their own and, wing it as they go, and then they never make it to maps anyways.
Chris Wilson did mention that there are more nerfs to specific skills that they're going to hold off on talking about until they give out the actual patch notes and everything. So the big skills that are really dominant right now are probably going to get nerfs themselves. The nerf to triggered abilities, I don't know if that didn't just flat out kill cast on crit builds. That one was massive.
Possibly did, but Chris did say that cast on crit was going to be something.
I'm also, that one nerf has me a little concerned for cast when damage taken. Is that gonna possibly make it so that my cast when damage taken doesn't happen? Because that saves my life so much. So the triggered skill, actually I don't think it's a nerf. I think it's making it work the way they originally intended it to work, but haven't bothered with for so long because it's become a mechanic that a lot of people rely on. But still, I think that one might be a pretty big one. But just the damage nerfs, I'm not really all that concerned with. It's just get better at dodging and deal with longer fights.
You can't dodge everything in the game is the problem, and that's the way Path of Exile's been. I personally will wait until I actually play it. There's no telling how it's all going to work out. For me personally, since I'm not a mathematician when it comes to looking at I'm not going to break down nor look up how much is mathematically affected as far as the formulas and stuff like that when it comes to the nerfs. I'll look at the patch notes and see how they are, and I'll read through them, compare them to how they used to be as far as the skills and the support gems. But I personally don't see it being a big problem. There's going to be a meta. There's still going to be things that everybody's going to want to play because they're going to see a weakness. There's always a kink in the armor, no matter what a company does. And that's all companies, whether that's Blizzard, Grinding Gear Games, smaller companies like 11th Hour Games with Last Epoch. There's always going to be something where people find a way. Look at how many times Spectres has been nerfed over the last 3 leagues. Spectres has been hit personally and is still capable of putting out 100 million DPS Spectres. So that is something that's going to, somebody's going to find ways around some of the nerfs as far as being able to build competent builds that are fun to play. If that's what you need is to follow the meta, then that's still going to be an option. If you want to build off-meta builds, that's still not going to be impossible. That is going to be something that you can do. You are still going to be able to do that. I do not think that it hurts the casual gamer more than the other no-lifers and stuff like that. I think it's going to hurt them equally, but not more. I do not know exactly how it's all going to play out. I'm not going to promise that, you can make Lightning Warp a viable end game ability, because you probably can't, but the odds that Lightning Warp was designed to be that isn't there. But the majority of skills out there, you can turn into a build. Now, you do have to look up and try to figure out how to do it. Yes. Is Path of Exile a game in general that is very new player friendly? No, it's not. And it's never been that way. And I don't think this is going to change that either way.
I know they've stated for a while now that they kind of want to slow down the game. I don't think they really intend for the game to be this just zoom and everything on screen blows up, you're off screen and everything, because that basically eliminates all of the things that they're putting out there for you to deal with. When 90% of players opt for pure offense over defense because it's the thing that works the best for them.
Especially in softcore.
Yeah, especially in softcore. It's just, blow everything up multiple screens away. That means you're not really engaging all that much into the things that they created. And when you can instant phase bosses, you're not engaging in the boss mechanics they intended you to. So I think they're really trying to tone down that kill it before it kills you to force people to engage in actual fights with things. And it's going to affect the really higher end players a lot more in that aspect, because the more casual players are, players like me that always end up playing off meta random crap that we throw together because we think it might be cool. We're used to slow play. I'm used to having to dodge crap from rares because my rares don't blow up instantly, and having, 5-minute fights with different bosses before they are dead. So those players that are used to that slower play style are kind of accustomed to that. Okay, we've learned where all the things are. We've gotten really good at timing our dodges and things like that, where I think the people who are going to get hurt the most are really going to be the people who take those meta builds and go by the build guides to just try and get something really big, because those top tier players, they're good at that stuff too. Plus, they've taken the time to figure out what a min-maxed awesome build is going to be. It's going to be the players that we constantly tell, if you want to play the game, start out looking at someone's build guide. That might not be the best option anymore. It might just be play with a friend to figure out the game slowly. Yep. So
the other thing with the whole new players getting hurt more than older players, no, because these buffs are coming at the end game. He literally said that the 6 link, as you progress, your power was getting more. They are attempting to mitigate that top end rather than the lower end. And personally, you either love Path of Exile or you hate Path of Exile. There's very few in between of, I like it, but it's hard. And, you either really like it and you want to learn more and you want to learn how to make your own builds, or you don't like how intensive it is and you stop playing anyways. That's the case now. It's the case 5 years ago. It's going to be the case in Path of Exile 2. But I think that slowing everything down will help mitigate some of that more than the opposite. Path of Exile is a very time-consuming game. It definitely is. Current Atlas.
Shark about that Atlas.
I don't mind the current Atlas. It's pretty much very similar to the old Atlas for the most part, as far as Shaper and Elder, that aspect. I mean, way back, if you're going like, 4 years ago, it's a lot different. But yeah, setting up your Atlas and getting things how you want it, yeah, that takes a lot, especially with the new Atlas passives. So the Atlas itself is a game all its own. But that's when you get to endgame. The majority of new players, or if you don't like the game, you're gone before Brutus. Brutus is not even the end of the first act.
God, especially the newer
You know
Brutus.
what I mean? And you usually ditch the game then. And it's hard for players to get by, and mostly a lot of times that has to do with the aesthetics of PoE, and they've been improving that over time. But back when I started it wasn't the prettiest of games for sure, and it still graphically turns some people off, which is okay. I personally think it has great graphics, and I love playing it, and I love the way everything flows in it, and I really like the end game content. I actually am to the point where, just like Diablo 3, I'm not interested in the campaign. I'd like to get to the Atlas part and do that sort of thing and do the end game. But the majority of new players don't make it to maps. They never do. They never will, and they never have. And that's because of what Path of Exile is. Path of Exile is a very time-consuming game. It is very reliant on you figuring shit out either by pure force of will or going to find a guide and somebody to teach you how to play the game when it comes to getting to endgame and getting past endgame and stuff like that.
Like, I'm really curious about the second half of Act 1 because, like Chris Wilson said, they're adding new mobs that have never been seen before to the second half of Act 1 to increase the density. Because he said they took a look at it and it's like really low density compared to the first half. They're adding new monsters in there. They're upping their health, their damage, all that good stuff. So Act 1 is probably going to be the roughest of the acts at this point. Of course, like, start at the first one instead of working your way backwards.
The thing is, we'll have to see.
I'm actually thinking, I have a weird relationship with PoE because I'm sitting here thinking about, I don't like the campaign. I don't like the Atlas, which is the main end game. I like some of the side stuff that are part of the Atlas, like the Temple, Delve, Heist, Betrayal. Like, I like those. But honestly, the part of the game I like the most is like the week or two before the league, when I'm sitting there on PoE Ninja going through like heat maps and going through my path of building, like planning out a new, like, that week is honestly my happiest week of the league.
Can I make this work? Yeah.
It's basically, can I make this weird janky crap work? And I will say, this past league was probably the first time I had one that worked that well. Made it to level 96, doing like end game stuff. It was kind of fun.
Mine lately over the past few leagues has been, checking out the most expensive builds I can find and going, can I do this? Can I make this work? And I've succeeded in like, 3 of my, the last 3 leagues. I've been able to make my most damage output I've ever had in PoE. I'm not talking, 80 million, but I've been able to put together 12 to 22 million DPS builds. And I've been able to do it while I was working, while my time was more constrained. Now I'll probably be able to do it because I have all the time in the world because I'm not currently working.
And I'm
So
sitting there looking at like, what can I do with 5 exalts or less? Because odds of me having any more than that the way I play is very unlikely.
what Path of Exile needs to do when they launch these new skills and stuff like that is make them OP. They should be. I'm sorry.
That way people want to play them
I
each
personally
league.
think that you make them OP at first, you nerf them later. You know what I mean? Because they're new. You want people to check them out so that you can see whether or not your design was something worth doing.
Well,
Why
it would also
would
give
you
a new meta
create
every
a
league.
brand new skill and put all that work and effort into it only to make it not viable and not played? That part doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? You know? It just, you always end up with a whole bunch of new skills that are like, fucking make them OP. Get people playing them. Get some feedback on the build. Nerf them when it needs to happen, you know, but make them playable. That's the key. Don't release 19 new skills and 4 of them are useful.
I think I've used a new skill for the past, as my starter for what, like the past 4 leagues, maybe? It's paid off a couple times. The Tendril Totems was one that paid off really well, and then
Blazing Salvo.
Blazing Salvo was great.
I thought was a great build. I ran Blazing Salvo Totems, and they wrecked bosses once you have it set up correctly and stuff like that. Their single target was crazy. It was weird because, you know, Blazing Salvo sends out a bunch of projectiles, and yet their AoE was kind of trash. But single target was pretty awesome because all of those projectiles hit the same target.
Yeah, because that season you were running Blazing Salvo Totems and I was doing Blazing Salvo Mines. And they were both really nice.
It was a fun build to play. It should have been a little bit more powerful, but it was something that was viable. And nobody played it. You know, and I think that's going to be the case in this upcoming, you know, content change where they can nerf stuff and things are going to be viable. Things that nobody plays are still going to be viable here and there. You know, are you going to be able to take every skill in the game and do every bit of content in the game? No. But you couldn't do that since this game's inception. You can't do that in every action role-playing game out there unless, you know, it's some dumbed-down ARPG like Chaos Bane or something like that. You can use whatever you want in that game because there is no content. But I think that, you know, going through these thoughts on what's coming and stuff like that, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. And I think if you want to quit POE, nobody's stopping you. You know, but then you're going to still be here playing Path of, not you personally, Aetrik, or any of my viewers, but if you're still going to be here halfway through the season, writing on Path of Exile forums or Reddit going, this game's fucking dead. You know, at that point, like, literally go find something else to do. Like, if you're not playing, you're not playing. Nobody owes you shit. You know, GGG doesn't owe you anything. Even if you bought a $400, you know, supporter pack that did not come with the explicit contract stating you have say in what happens in this game. You invested. It didn't go your way. You know? That's just the way it is.
The Winged Lady portals look nice.
Oh my God, both of the supporter packs look amazing. Absolutely
I'm not going to buy
amazing.
either, but they look nice.
I can't afford them. Yeah, I can't afford a supporter pack. I can't even afford any MTX this league. But that's, you know, I get stuff going on, hospital bills and all of that stuff that I'm still going on and you know, not working anymore and stuff like that. But if I had the money, woo, I would buy that shit in a heartbeat because they look pretty badass. Yeah, new supporter packs look sweet. All
This
right.
month.
I think, do you have any final thoughts on Path of Exile's announcement?
No, I'm just honestly, I'm kind of stoked for this one. Just because I want to see if people come up with new random crap for a change instead of the same old things that have been rehashed for several leagues now.
I
I
too.
don't want to see a cast on crit cyclone build at all this league. I just don't want to see one. I'm gonna be mad if there's still top things.
I am totally looking forward to next league. I do plan on playing POE for the league. I also plan on playing Diablo 3's season start. Like I said, for my Level with a Cause charity event that we run every single season start in Diablo 3. So I will be delayed a little bit when it comes to Path of Exile, but I'll be playing both for sure. And definitely check out me and Aetrik during the opening weekend of both Path of Exile and Diablo 3, as we both stream for Level with a Cause. Aetrik will be playing Path of Exile. I'll be playing Diablo 3, and at some point I'll also be playing some Path of Exile. Probably not during that opening weekend, though, but we'll have to see how that all pans out. But definitely stop by one of us or one of the other Level with a Cause streamers next weekend. We're trying to raise some money for Save the Children, and it should be a great weekend. I'm looking forward to all the changes upcoming in Path of Exile. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to be spending a ton of time on Reddit reading all of the tiers because I'm also enjoying the hell out of that. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for checking out this video. Greatly appreciate it. I know this was a long-winded one, and we greatly appreciate you hanging out with us. You guys have a fantastic day. Peace.
See y'all.